This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and here's another Smackdown that you folks requested. Both of these are expensive machines, but they are extremely different, and I can understand if you want them both. I know I certainly do, but in the end, you're going to have to pick which features are most important to you. I'm talking about the Microsoft Surface Book here, which is kind of sold out everywhere right now, so it's really hard to get, and the brand new Dell XPS 15 Infinity, as it's called, because it has the new Infinity display, just like the XPS 13. Almost no bezels on this. So 15.6-inch quad-core powerhouse, call it a mobile workstation kind of laptop with pretty powerful dedicated graphics versus Surface Book right here, which is a dual-core i7 with optional, okay, dedicated graphics. But its party trick, this 13.5-inch device here, is that it's a convertible. It's also a tablet. You can separate them out. It comes with a pen, as you can see, hanging on the screen. So we're going to talk about those differences now. All right, here we have two really lovely pieces of technology, and you know, they're not in everybody's price range either, but I can tell you one thing right away. The first important decision that you have to make is, what size screen do you want? It's a big difference. This is a 13-inch class machine. This is a 15-inch class machine. If you like the bigger screen real estate, if you like to have multiple windows open without a whole lot of crowding, if you're used to a bigger machine, if you're doing very serious photo or video editing, professional, serious hobby, what have you, a bigger screen can be nice. Next decision is, this is the really important one, folks. And I know it's hard because some folks just want the neatest, coolest, best machine that they think they can get for their money. And for both of these, you're talking around at least $1,500, especially for the Surface. That's the starting price right there. And moving up to $2,000 or so. Well, before we say any of that, do you want a traditional laptop? You can get the Dell with or without a touchscreen, and we have the touchscreen glossy 4K display here. Do you want just a conventional laptop? It doesn't flip, it doesn't yoga, it doesn't separate in pieces, it doesn't have an active digitizer for a precise digital pen. You could use a capacitive stylus on it, which is one step just short of just shoot me if you're trying to use that for art. Even for note-taking, because you don't get palm rejection and all that kind of thing. And who would want to be reaching across here all the time, right, to write on the screen? It doesn't make sense. Or do you want and need a convertible, a 2-in-1? Because the Microsoft Surface Book, you press the little button right here, and the display separates from the keyboard, and you have a tablet, or clipboard, as Microsoft likes to call it, that you can draw on with the included there. You can see it hanging via magnetic connection to the side there. N-trig pen with an eraser on the bottom end that writes beautifully. It has palm rejection, all that sort of thing. You want to take notes, you're a graphic artist, you do diagrams, whatever it is, you have to scribble on PDFs day in and day out, well, then the Surface Book is your kind of product. Now, it may not be the specific convertible 2-in-1 that you do end up buying. Among those with pens, there is some competition, including Surface Pro 4, but that's a whole nother discussion right there. So anyway, if you want the convertible, if you want the 2-in-1, if you want the screen to separate from the base so you can just use the screen as your computer, well, it's going to be Surface Book. If you really pretty much just need a laptop, you're going to be using it on a desk, on your lap, you're not going to be trying to write with a pen, anything like that, the Dell is the one for you. Next, let's talk about horsepower and performance. The Dell goes, ha-ha, it laughs at the Surface Book, right? Microsoft touted how awesome the performance was on Surface Book, and among Ultrabooks, it has pretty good performance, and it has low-end dedicated graphics that are optional. They're in the base. You'll have to buy the more expensive model. The $1,500 entry model doesn't get you that. You're looking at around $1,899 and up to get one with the dedicated graphics in the base. Roughly equivalent to NVIDIA 940M with 1 GB of DDR5 VRAM inside. It's enough actually to play Fallout 4, which impressed me because Fallout 4 is kind of a pig of a game, and I was playing it last night on there. Now, the resolutions that the game offered topped out at like 1440 by 800. I don't remember, slightly odd because of the 3:2 aspect ratio. And on low settings, I could get 60 frames per second pretty much for gameplay. Now, Fallout 4 isn't a game where you really have to have super high frame rates, but the Surface Pro did a pretty decent job, but you're going to be doing it at low settings and low resolutions. And then there's that 3:2 scaling issue that Bethesda and Fallout just seem to have some issues with. Beyond that, the Dell powerhouse, all except for the $999 Core i3 option, they're all quad-core CPUs, much higher wattage. This is a 45-watt CPU with 4 cores versus a 15-watt dual core there. So You can imagine the difference, and all but the base model, so starting at about $1,200, gets you switchable NVIDIA GTX 960M graphics. The 960M, 970M, 980M are all in NVIDIA's high line of GPUs, and for something that's not a gaming laptop specifically, it's not an Alienware, it's not an Asus ROG, those you might see, you'll sometimes see the 970, 980M, certainly on their higher end ones, but the 960 is no slouch. I was able to play Fallout 4 on this really nicely at 1920 by 1080 resolution and a mix of medium and high settings, and it was pretty darn good. And frame rate averaged around 52 or so, which is very playable, 52 frames per second. So, if you're a gamer, the Surface Book will get you into games, which is pretty neat for anything that's a tablet. That's pretty darn rare, especially, you know, having dedicated graphics, it just doesn't happen. You're going to pay for it, like I said, around $18.99 and up. But the Dell is the powerhouse here. It has 2 more cores that are running at high wattage, besides the fact that this is pretty great for playing any modern game, at least on medium settings at 1920 by 1080 resolution. If you do things that are very processor intensive, if you're editing 1080p video or 4K video, I'm talking about as a serious hobby or professionally, not somebody who does this as a weekend kind of thing. You're going to want the more cores in here and the better graphics as well. If you're compiling large programs, again, it's going to make a difference. If you have spreadsheets with thousands of rows and you're doing calculations, you're going to want that quad-core power. Also, if you're doing CAD work, I mean, neither of these is designed to be a CAD workstation with Quadro graphics, for example, but this will rip through CAD. I know Microsoft showed demos of certain CAD programs running decently, and they will run decently here. I'm talking about you folks who are actually not just studying it in school anymore, you're doing it professionally. The Dell would be a viable mobile solution. You'd probably find the Surface Book a little bit lacking. In terms of build quality, these are both excellent products with wonderful fit and finish, unibody, aluminum design. Pretty durable, not flexible. Even the Surface, I mean, that feels very rugged and there's no flex anywhere. They both have very good keyboards. It's funny, the Surface Book actually has a little bit more key travel. It's 1.5 millimeter versus 1.3 millimeter. For a 15-inch laptop, the Dell has pretty short key travel. I actually do like the Surface Book a little bit better when it comes to typing. Both of these have excellent trackpads. The new crop of Microsoft and Dell machines shipping with Windows 10 and Skylake CPUs, really very nice trackpads on these that rival the Macs, which is pretty darn good. Now, big difference in terms of heat. Now, the Dell runs pretty darn cool. Even when playing games, it doesn't get burning hot, but it's a normal laptop, so your CPU, your GPU, everything is in the base. It's going to be against your legs. There are fan vents at the bottom. There they are. The Surface Book, it's a tablet really. This part separates out. So all the brains are up here. Your CPU, your RAM, your SSD. The only thing that would be at the bottom is the optional dedicated GPU. So you won't feel any heat, really. Even if you are playing a game, that GPU, since it's just sitting there by itself, doesn't really make that much heat. It's a pretty low-end GPU, honestly. So this will be the cooler cucumber. Both of these are capable of making fan noise. Certainly, both of them are pretty much silent when doing productivity work or streaming video. If you're going to be playing Fallout 4, though, expect to hear the fan on either of them pretty much similarly, actually. So, battery, something to talk about here. 2 batteries in the Surface. The bigger one's actually in the base, the smaller one's here. 3 hours of battery life by itself, a claimed 12 hours together. It's going to depend on what configuration that you get. Now, we've been averaging around 10 hours for this. You could manage 12 hours. It's pretty darn impressive. If you're working on your power management and you're only running, you know, simple things, productivity apps, MS Office, that sort of thing, very light use of Photoshop. The Dell is a quad-core machine. It has a much bigger battery inside, but it's still a quad-core machine with switchable NVIDIA high-end graphics inside. So this guy, about 6.5 hours, 6.5 hours. And that's with a larger battery, the 84 watt-hour battery. This is also available with a 56 watt-hour battery, depending on the configuration that you get. And that would, as we'd expect, would run shorter. Now, the time I am quoting is with the Dell 4K display option. If you had 1080p, you'd probably get longer run times. How about displays? Besides the fact that there's a difference in the display size, 2 inches diagonally, the Surface Book is available with only one resolution, 3000 by 2000 pixels. Nice high pixel density. It's a beautiful display. It does 100% of sRGB. It's a pretty color accurate display. if you do a little color tuning with a colorimeter, you're going to get it even closer on to being extremely accurate. It's a very nice display. It's very bright at over 400 nits, around 414 as we measured it. The Dell over here has two different display options. Like I said, we have the 4K UHD display. It's 3840 by 2160 pixels, so even more pixels, but it is a bigger screen that has to spread them across. But more important, notice how vivid the colors and rich they are here. This is 100% of Adobe RGB, which is a wider color gamut than sRGB, so wildly colorful. Also a higher white point, so the whites are kind of searingly cool white. Even with calibration, nothing can change the white point. That's a nature of the display right there. But for those of you who work in print and you need that full Adobe RGB, or you're doing professional cinema work, you might want this display just for that reason. If you're just doing graphics for web or just enjoying things yourself, then certainly the Surface Book is no slouch. It's one of the most beautiful displays I've actually seen in a 13-inch class machine. And movies look perfectly gorgeous on both of them. You are going to get more color saturation on this, obviously. This is 350 nit display, but it seems brighter because of that high white point. The whites are so bright white that I find I really very rarely use it over 50% brightness setting, and I like my displays bright, whereas I usually go 60 to 75% on Surface Book, even though it's actually technically the brighter display in terms of nits. So they're both stunning displays. It depends how you feel about the super duper color saturation available here. It calibrates up pretty well, actually. It doesn't mean it's inaccurate just because it's highly saturated, but if you're only working for the web, you can choose the sRGB setting. It still looks more saturated, though, even at sRGB, than, say, our very accurate Surface Book. So if you're just working for web, then you actually might be a little better off with this one. Or use an external monitor with either of them. The Dell has an HDMI port. This has a mini display port. There's USB-C/Thunderbolt 3 port also on the Dell, so you can hook up a mini display port monitor there, an HDMI 2.0 monitor. With Surface Book, Microsoft's $199 dock really rocks. Adds a bunch of USB 3.0 ports, 2 display ports on it as well, and Ethernet, and that's a pretty nice product right there. Now, there's some quirks right now. If you hook up 2 4K displays to the dock, sometimes it just changes the scaling settings for your monitors and the arrangement and all that sort of thing. Hopefully that'll get worked out. So both of these can be versatile and can be expanded. And Dell has their USB-C adapter, which just started shipping. It's a little doohickey that has the USB 3.0 port. It has the HDMI 2.0 port, which means 4K at 60 hertz. Yay. And Ethernet also, and that one is $75. Both of these do have SD card slots as well. So there you have it. You get the idea now. If you need the super duper performance powerhouse, the Dell is really, in terms of benchmarks and in terms of if you're doing something like compiling code, anything that's going to hit the CPU heavily, or even some graphically heavy things thanks to the GPU in most models, this is about twice as fast as the Surface Book. So speed is a consideration. If you want a laptop, this is it. If you need a tablet and you need a pen, this is going to be your choice. If price is an issue, I have to say that, you get more for your money nominally with the Dell because you're getting the faster CPU, you're getting the higher resolution display. You get the idea. Sometimes the fancy technology is what you're paying for. And in this case with Surface Book, it is that interesting hinge design, the separable 2-in-1, the active digitizer. You're paying for those bells and whistles. So if you need them, it's worth it. If you really don't, then not so much. Last thing to mention, the Surface Book, like many tablets, is a sealed device. You'd need a display puller to pull the display off to get to the internals on that. You're not upgrading this yourself. Get whatever it is you need in terms of RAM, and SSD. RAM is soldered on anyway. The Dell is your good old-fashioned notebook. You can unscrew the bottom panel right here. It has 2 RAM slots. It has an M2 SSD slot. If you get the smaller battery, it actually has a 2.5-inch drive bay, and there's a socketed wireless card here. So in terms of upgradability, going down the road, if you want to freshen up your machine, the Dell is a great choice there too. And since we're looking at those speakers down here, these are Dell's down-firing speakers. There is a little curve so it doesn't get completely muffled by the table. You might think it's quiet. It is very loud, actually, especially if you have Dell audio software pre-installed. I would say Surface Book with its front-firing speakers right there actually sounds a little fuller, or maybe a little bit richer, but not as loud as the Dell. The Dell is shockingly loud. So there you have it, Microsoft Surface Book and the Dell XPS 15. hopefully now you understand the differences and which stuff you need more. If you need a tablet, if you need an precise digital pen, then it's going to be Surface Book or some other device with a pen too, for that matter, although this is one of the nicer and bigger screen examples that you're going to find. If you need a powerhouse laptop, dual cores ain't cutting it for you. You need 4 cores, you do video processing, you do big code compiles, number crunching of something like that, coding. Well, the XPS 15 could be for you, and that full Adobe RGB display option for the 4K display is just wild to look at. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to watch both our video reviews of these products, read our written reviews, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.